Welcome back to another segment of On the Fly Lacrosse Podcast, casual conversations around coaching youth lacrosse. I'm your host, Martin Bose, Coach and Player Education Director for Mass Youth Lacrosse. I'm joined by my co-host, Joey Picard, and an exciting guest for us today, Matt Belson of Scoops Lacrosse. We're really excited to get some questions in with you today and get your philosophy on coaching, get some of your strategies and why Scoops is such a profound program, in this area and growing. And want to give you a shout out to your partnership with USA Lacrosse. Congratulations on that. And I guess let's start with just a quick bio, if you don't mind, just telling us a
Yeah.
little bit about your coaching and your playing background and what led to where you are today.
Yeah. First and foremost, pumped to be here with you guys. Big fans of you both. So thanks for having me and thanks for this. I'm been waiting for a little while to get the call to be on here. So, this is Christmas for me now. So I'm excited. And oh yeah. So I'm a South Shore boy. I grew up in Cohasset. I played there. Back then, they didn't really have a great program. It was just starting out, relatively new. So, we were kind of figuring out what to do. We would wear like football jerseys. And, that's how it kind of got going. And by the time my senior year rolled around there, we had a pretty decent team. I'm not going to miss the opportunity to take a shot at Hingham, and we beat them. I'd still see John Todd today and remind him of that. So, yeah. That's where it is. After Cohasset, I went down. I played at Lafayette College, which is a really small school down in Pennsylvania, but they have a Division I program. I'm proud to say that I got off to a 4-year starter and was the captain of that team, which I think is pretty cool. And currently still hold their all-time leader for ground balls. So pretty pumped about that. As you guys both know, they win games. That might get us to Scoops as well. But yeah, that's kind of the lacrosse pedigree. After that, I got the itch. I wanted to actually stop playing after I graduated college for a few years. I don't know if that's common to you guys a little bit, but yeah, I wanted to take a break. And then a little bit later, like closer to my late 20s, I started getting that itch that wanted me to get back into coaching. And I started doing some things in New York City for Docs Lacrosse. I don't know if you've heard of that. And coached a really cool kid named Arden Cohen, who went on to have a pretty successful career in Notre Dame and the PLL. And then I I decided to leave New York City and come back to Massachusetts, come back to Cohasset. And that's when I started coaching the high school team there. So I coached the high school team. They had some good years. We won a state championship. We battled with the Dover Sherborne for a few years, those big D3, D4 going at each other. And then that would have gotten me to about 2017, 2018. And that's when Scoops started to kick in.
What is it about the youngest level, those kids, Matt, that drew you into that as sort of where you wanted to put your stamp, the youngest?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think when I started Scoops, I came into it and I was looking at the landscape and it felt significantly different from when I grew up. Like when I grew up and when you guys grew up, we played in the backyards a lot. And it seemed like there was like an emergence of a kind of a new scene that was happening where kids were kind of being pulled in multiple directions and not necessarily playing in their backyards anymore, and maybe like traveling to, some distance and playing a lot of pressure. And to me, the opportunity was like, hey, how can we make this thing fun? How can we like take a step back and how can we look at it? How do we create an atmosphere where kids actually want to be? And when I started Scoops, I remember thinking like, wow, this is kind of cool. I can create a curriculum that isn't drills, but we're going to teach them the exact same way that we'd want to. And I kind of got into it, and I would think about the curriculum every night, and I would write these like game plans out at 60 minutes. And how do you incorporate like a party atmosphere? I stole the North Star from Chuck E. Cheese's, that old pizza stop. I'd watch their commercials and these kids ran in and they wanted to play they wanted pizza, they wanted to play arcades. And at the end of it, they'd say, we're Chuck E. Cheese's where kids can be kids. And I was like, this is awesome. This is exactly where I want to create a lacrosse program. The lacrosse is going to be the second act you're building this story. What's going to be the first is fun. We're going to build these kids' confidence. We're going to make them want to come here. And if we do that, that's like awesome for the sport. It's great for parents. And then you know what? When the time's right, like it's same with my specifically, this started with Archer in my backyard. I can tell the story. But when the time's right, then they can go to those clubs. And that's when it'll be worth it. And that's when they're maturity and ready to go, stuff like that. But for the time being, I'm just going to create this kind of really cool, kid-friendly, place where I can like rock out to 80s rap or 80s rock and 90s rap, and parents want to be there. And that's kind of how Scoop started to get going. And to answer your question, it's like, it's fun. It's just fun to see these kids. And I always used to say this thing about like, you do it enough times, like you teach a kid how to scoop a ground ball, right? I've got this fun way where I introduce Mr. Knuckles, right? Mr. Knuckles teaches the kids to get down low and they start to scoop the ground ball. And, you know, you do it enough, you put your foot as a foot wedge if they're struggling and they get down, they scoop. And then as they scoop it, they look at the ball and their eyes go up like they just saw a butterfly, a moth come. And it's just awesomeness in terms of like how good they feel about themselves. Now they're going to go home and I'm going to tell them how good like, that's the thing about coaching is you tell them how good they are. You tell them how much like cool that is. And then they get in the backyard or then they go back and they show mom and dad that they learned this new skill, that they know how to scoop and they call Mr. Knuckles and they show their big brother or little sister or whatever that they did it. And to me, like, look, we're all in the craziness of like kids sports. And if we can just hold on to this purity for a little bit longer and not have them rush off and, you know, travel distances or do anything, that's pretty cool because their time will come. Like our kids, right, Joe, our kids' time is now coming. It's their time now. But like early, let's let them just be kids.
I know.
Totally.
So a little background for you, Marty, is Matt and I coach against each other like twice a year down here in the South Shore. We both have a 7th grader. We both have 5th grader. They're always amazing games. You know, they're so two well-disciplined teams. The kids have a blast. Like, I feel like they're still in kindergarten. I was looking at pictures the other day, all the kids with their tiny faces now, they're colliding and you can hear the bones crunch. I'm like, oh, it's happening way too fast. But Matt is such an easy coach to coach against because he brings this energy that he doesn't turn off after Scoops. He brings it to the town program in 7th grade, not just for your intro level. And the games are always fantastic. It's what youth sports is supposed to be. So I'm always really looking forward to our matchups. I'm envious. I have, you know, it's funny because a lot of Duxbury kids go through the Scoops program.
Yeah.
And when I get them in the little dudes, our town version of, you know, K1 and 2, I'll kind of ask how many people have done Scoops, and then a bunch of hands go up, and I go, oh, "Damn!" So I have to be fun now because like that's the expectation. I can't be drill master. Okay, all right. So we'll have a party. Let's put some music on.
No, that's awesome. Yeah,
But you do an amazing job to build the love of the sport. I think that's what we all want to try to do at that first level. Is kids can't wait to come back, right?
That's it. That's what I tell my coaches all the time, which is like, you have one job today. You make these kids feel so darn good about themselves that they run up to their parents' car and they say they love lacrosse. Now, funny enough, 98% of them can't say the word properly. They call it cross. 100% can't spell the word. I've gotten a lot of gift cards, a lot of like, you know, thank yous. None of it's, they'd never spell cross right, but the job is done. They love it and they want to come. And I think that's what it's all about is you inspire that. They want to come back. And I mean, Marty, you're a professional lacrosse player. Like you got good because you enjoyed it, right? It wasn't because someone was telling you to do it. You liked it. And so because you liked it, you went in the backyard, you found the wall. That's our job. Our job is never going to get them to be professional lacrosse players. It just, we don't have that ability. What we do have the ability in when they're young. And also I'd say in probably the 7th grade piece is really cool. I love that age. We have the ability to inspire them to maybe go out to the wall, to go shoot on their own, to kind of find that fun part. And you do it by making them feel good about themselves, right? That's what it's all about to me.
In your sort of like backstory, you know, you phrase it as a classic dad fail. And I think that maybe that's also a classic coach fail, you know, is kind of the backstory of like, you wanted to help improve technique, you know, you wanted to implement this drill or this skill. And because of the pushback you got, you were forced to kind of reconsider. And I think it's such a common frustration point for coaches is like, they really want to get the most out of their group. They want them to go home, leave. And that was awesome. I love lacrosse. And sometimes it can be maybe that middle step that we're missing of like, well, the way that we get there is to help them get better so that they can have more fun with it. It'll be more fun if they get better at catching and cradling and scooping. And so I gotta teach these skills first and then it can be more fun. So what's your advice to coaches who are, you know, struggling with that, you know, to get their group to a certain level of skill that man, I would love to do this drill in that game, but I feel like I can't because my skill's not there. So what do you say to a coach that's struggling with that?
Yeah, it's tough. And I think like the old adage of like every kernel from popcorn's going to pop when they're ready to go. And I think it's like you've got to find a way. I wrote this article once. Wish I kind of was thinking about it. It's like coach the one in front of you because everyone's going to have different shapes and sizes. Kids in the same grade are going to be, you know, emotionally, physically different from each other. Ages like, there's this one thing in like Australia, this rugby program for kids where they put 1, 2, 3, and 4 on their back of the jersey so that you can determine what quarter that kid was born in because everybody is different. So if you're born in January, you have a 1. If you're born in November, you have a 4. And then parents are less judgy, coaches are less judgy of trying to figure out why this one kid in the same grade can't do what the other one can do. And his time or her time will come. So I think like, as you just think through like how you're coaching, everyone's going to be different, but like, I implore you to find a fun way to try to teach. I teach catching with balloons, right? And I throw a balloon and I try to like hand-eye coordination, just kind of get there. And then from that point, you get on a knee and you start using a tennis ball. Like, trust me, using a hard ball and throwing it from 5 feet away, it's going to end in the result that you think it's going to end in. And not only is the kid going to be kind of, almost like I'm done with this, you're going to get frustrated too, because you're looking at it from your perspective. You're looking at it from like, hey, I'm a dad and I know the game and I can throw and I can catch. And how come my son can't do this? Right? Or how come my daughter can't do this? But it's like, everyone's going to be different. Some kids, as we all grew up, have like awesome hand-eye coordination. Some kids come later. Like, just do it really simple. Do a tennis ball, use a balloon, do something that's going to inspire them. And I think ultimately, like I think you're alluding to, do something that they're going to want to go out and do on their own. So I think just find the creative ways, but always remember that the one that's in front of you is going to be different one to the one that's next to you.
Yeah. And I love what you said about, hey, and maybe we can influence them to want to go do something on their own.
Yeah.
The likelihood of that actually happening is so much greater if it's based in, meeting them where they're at and fun, as opposed to like, here's the demand, here's our standard. Maybe you can build to that with an older group, but, for a kid to like look at their stick while they're, hanging around watching TV or playing video games and be like, you know what, I'm going to grab that and go play outside for 10 minutes. Like, that moment is like, they think it's going to be fun.
Totally.
That's the only way it's going to be sustainable. Maybe they do that 1 or 2 times because I don't want coach to yell at me anymore. But like, we
Totally.
all know that, trying to create action based on fear is not sustainable. And it's not what's going
No.
to bring them back year after year.
Yeah, and get creative, right? Like I used to like have balloons, water balloons, and I used to pin them up to like the goal, or and let my kids try that. Or like I remember I painted like a Captain America like target one time, so that they could try to smash the target. Get creative in however you're going to try to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish.
And the more creative you are, then the more tools you have, because it's really important to also remember we have to be different things to different kids. You started to kind of touch on this, but we talk so much about coach planning. You come in with a practice plan, but you have to come in with a willingness to say, this kid's going to respond with
Yeah.
positive reinforcement. This kid here is going to respond to the competitive side. What's
Totally.
going to get him to the wall is not me saying going there. It's going to
Totally.
be do so well in that 3-on-3 compared to his teammates. So he's going to
Right.
put that pressure on himself. I got to go hit the wall myself. So foster that. So you have to be creative. You have to be imaginative, and you have to be prepared to treat each kid kind of a little different strategy on a one-on-one basis.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I've been blessed to be able to watch you coach. I've also had the opportunity to watch your coach's coach.
Yeah.
And it's really, really interesting. Last time I got to witness that, it was a younger kid. I forget his name, but probably early 20s. And I'm watching him, engage with the kids and the way that he's having them make animal noises and, just like silly things that have nothing to do with lacrosse, putting their stick down, hands on your head, or, these
Yeah.
little games that just get the kids paying attention, and they're all kind of laughing and giggling. And I'm watching this and I'm going, I'm not good at, I haven't done this, like
Yeah.
I need to start doing this. And it was like immediately all my warm-ups from then on out, I started to say, all right, now we're crawling like a lion. Or I
Yeah.
tried to incorporate some of those things.
Yeah.
Was that kind of something that, you were like on the drawing board, like, all right, I got to do more of that? Or is it like, just figure it out as you go, and then you're like adding things to the curriculum because they
Yeah.
get engagement from the kids?
It's a great question. I think for me, it's all about like I have this, it's almost like a play. I call it 3 acts at Scoops, right? You have the intro, you have the games, and you have the wrap. And what I realized is that I met my match finally of kids, of someone who might have more ADD than I do. right? So I need to engage these kids and I need to connect with these kids and I need to move these kids, right? Because if I don't, they're going to start checking out butterflies, the grass. They're going to start hitting each other with sticks, all that stuff. So like, how do I engage? How do I connect with them right off the bat? And for me, it's as simple as like, put your hands up, ready, knees, put your hands up, ready, knees, put your hands up, like just getting them going. And like how I teach cradling, like air, nose, air, nose, air, nose. Like I hear you ball, I smell you ball. What does your ball smell like? I come down to 3 feet level of a 5-year-old's maturity, and that's how I connect with them. And if that's what they're interested in, awesome. And as they get up to be older, you know, they don't want anything to do with it. That's not interesting to them. But what's interesting to them at that time is doing a frog jump, right? A bear crawl, to your point. Like what's interesting to them is all that stuff. So I just think, to me, the best piece of coaching advice I can give is you've got to meet those kids where they're at and you've got to find what's interesting to them. Like kids love competition, right? So like you can run relay races with any age group as long as like, you're in it. Relay races, as long as you're kind of like, all right, you're going to do it this way. You're going to cradle this way. You're going to drop the ball, roll the ball. You're going to have different teams. Teams have names. Give the opportunity for the kids to give the teams names. That's great. And what I always say about competition is like start it young because it's awesome because it gives the kids the opportunity to do two things: compete, which that brings out the best of them. Two, if you lose with, grace. If you win with humility. And like, that's an awesome lesson. So one of the things at Scoops that as I started going into hey, I'm like teaching them how to like scoop a ball or throw a ball and all these different ways. I was like, I got these kids' attention. So I'm like, you know what? I listened to this podcast. It was a coach from Manchester United's like junior club. And they said that every time that before practice went on, they'd go onto the pitch and they'd shake the coach's hand before they'd practice. And I was like, this is awesome. These guys are like going a little bit above just the sport and they're teaching these kids like some really kind of cool lifelong lessons.
Hmm.
So for me, it's like, if I can teach that lose with, grace, win with humility, if you could pause like for that and you can teach these kids to say thank you to their coaches while you're doing this program, it's a pretty cool program that you're building and something that I'm pretty excited about. At the end of every Scoops class, I'll ask them, did you have fun today? And they'll all say, yeah. I say, okay, well, we had fun for 3 reasons. The first reason we had fun is because somebody brought you here. So let's look out and let's say thank you to mom, dad, grandparents, like on the count of 3, let's say thank you. And they say 1, 2, 3, thank you. And I said, the second reason you had fun today is because of your coaches. So let's look at the coaches and let's say thank you, coaches. 1, 2, 3, thank you, coaches. And I say the third reason you had fun is each other, right? There was no fighting. There was no crying. Let's look at someone in the eye. I make a point of stressing eye contact is important in life. Again, nothing to do with lacrosse, but like I've got their attention. So on the count of 3, let's say thank you. 1, 2, 3, let's say thank you. So for me, it's a cool thing because it's like you get the opportunity to teach these kids something way more important than, how to, shoot a corner or something like that.
Sure.
Brilliant.
love
So
that.
you started talking a little bit about the parent. That's a huge part because they're the ones, the parent, the grandparent, the guardian brought them there. So
Yeah.
Matt, just to pick your brain a little bit, I know that a lot of parents like will stay and watch. They're not just dropping their kids off. They're
Yeah.
there. And some of them are just on their phone or talking, but a lot of them are actually watching and engaging. What are they?
Yeah.
What can I do at home? So what, if anything, do you either communicate with the parents about how to reinforce all of this stuff off the field? Or what do you wish you could kind of
Yeah.
take what you've done with them for 60 minutes and say, here's how the parent can kind of add to that in the backyard with them? Do you
Yeah.
have any kind of communication with them?
I need to do a better job of that. It's a really good point, but I think just meeting them with their interests, right? So if they come home and they get excited and they're like, hey, I loved my time at Scoops. Like, can I go in the backyard? It's like, just be there, watch them. They just want to feel excited about like what they're doing. So I think that's a really good thing. If they go back and they say, hey, we had a dance party, I can't wait to go back. That's equally as good too, because again, you keep them in this world and they're going to eventually like really, really develop it because they want to be there because it's fun. But I think, for any parents out there, it's like lower your expectation level. That's one of the hardest lessons I've ever dealt with in my life is with my, oldest son, Archer. It's like you as a parent, you have unconditional love. You want the best for your kids. Right. But at the same time, like what I've learned is that you need to meet them where their interests are. You've got to find them. If they're really excited and they want to do it, that's awesome. Celebrate that. But if you want it, you can't push it on them. Right. And so it's a tough one for sure. But at that young age, just let them be excited. Let them be happy. Their time will
Yeah.
come.
And
So
if I'm
Matt,
a coach,
yeah,
no, sorry. If I'm a coach listening to this, and let's say I coach a fifth, sixth, or seventh and eighth grade team, and maybe I'm not as excited about making bear noises, at the beginning of my practice, and I don't want to introduce Mr. Scoops because I just feel like I
Totally.
don't have to.
Yeah.
Do you have a message for those coaches of like, hey, well, maybe consider adding this as part of your warm-ups or adding this as part of your skill development? I personally would encourage those coaches to like, hey, let's check our egos and let's try what works. I mean, kids like having fun. So if we can find ways to make
Totally.
sure they're having fun and it makes us a little bit uncomfortable, that's actually a good thing. But maybe I'm
Yeah.
someone who's gonna struggle with that. What could I do, if anything, that maybe kind of
Yeah.
guarantees it'll be a little bit more fun than just saying, okay, roll the ball out and scoop it 25 times.
Totally. I mean, I think it's it's widely accepted that repetition is super super helpful and incredible for development. And I would say that like there's games that we play at Scoops that you could warm up with at 5, 6, 7, 8 year old eighth graders that again would just get the kids a ton of repetitions. If you played Hungry Hungry Hippos with eighth graders, they would have a blast, and I guarantee they would scoop up more balls and go 10 times faster than if you just did ball two, ball away, right? Would it look cool? Probably not to like, the lacrosse purists, but I would say that just getting those repetitions and just to go back to the competition, like you coach all these different sports. And for me, the best thing is two things. You get them repetitions and you get them moving and you get them competing. So three things, right? And getting them competing, it's like, two kids in a race. Who's faster? They're both going to give everything they got, right? Add a lacrosse ball and add a cone and have them do that. And that's game speed, which is, I think we all agree is like, that's how you're going to get better is the game speed. So think through like, what are you trying to teach them? And then how can you gamify that? And if you can gamify that, then I think you're going to get like a ton of effort. I'm sure you see it too, Joe, like with the seventh graders and the fifth graders is like, if there's a relay race or if there's some type of like, who's going to win, who's going to lose, if there's a scrimmage, you're going to get kids to go all out on those ones versus like, let's play this, cone, or let's play this like two ball away, like outlet clear drill. Like it's just
right.
not going to be interesting.
We usually stack our practices one over the other. And so one group's coming in, the other one's leaving. This is for our indoor. And so if I'm doing musical chairs ground balls with the third graders and we're having a blast at the end, figuring out who's that ground ball champion who has
Yeah.
that ball left, the seventh graders come in, coach, we're going to do that too, right? We get to figure out the seventh grade ground. But of course we are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
We're
totally.
going to work hard for that, but we're going to end with musical chairs ground balls, just like we did back at Little Dudes.
But yeah, I mean, look, I think everyone says it like if you look at like the most skilled soccer players in the world, it's typically from like South America, right? And I think like all they do is they play with the ball in the streets and it's pickup, right? And so what I've heard recently is like a lot of these like folks will give a shout out to Pete McIntyre in Weston, who's doing this like cool thing with he's doing a lot of 3-on-3 and he's doing a ton of like no goalies, right? Soft tennis ball, just constantly playing and the kids are moving. And I think the thing that interests me the most, again, is like the kids want to show up and do this. And I wish our sport had more of that, right? I wish our sport was like more like pickup basketball, right? And just because, again, it's fun. It's like some of my funnest memories when I was in like seventh or eighth grade was playing either street hockey in gym class or playing pickup lacrosse, like with those like old plastic sticks. It's just fun. Right. And so I think like, can we find that avenue in our sport to make it fun with these games, almost encouraging, 5, 6, 7, 8 year eighth graders to find those like 3-on-3, 4-on-4 games because, steal it from Powell, right? He was kind of the guy
Yeah.
that started the speed lacrosse, but like, that's how the best in the sport. You think about who the best players ever to play this sport, right? You got the Thompsons, right? You got the Powells, the Gates, like that was in the backyard, right? That was those guys competing with each other. And as a father of a few boys myself, I wish I could get that moving and more. And maybe not as many bloody noses, but in the backyard, but that's a different story.
But those kids, the stick is like an extension of their arm because they
Yeah,
never let it go. They get home
totally.
from school, you gotta like beg them to do homework because they're just out there throwing with their brother, throwing with the neighbor, and they just doing trick sticks, just cradling. And those are the
Totally.
kids who just in high school are the superstars because it's
Totally.
it's an extension of them.
And it's fun,
Yeah.
right? It's fun. It's like you kind of made me think of like someone who does like bike tricks or skateboarding tricks. Like they're out there doing it, they're enjoying it, they're perfecting it, right? And that's fun. That goes back to the interest level. They're not going out to the wall ball because dad said you get to go out there and do the wall ball, which we all know wall ball is you need it. But like, how do you find a way to get it so that it is fun? And think about some of those earlier YouTube videos with, I forget the guy from String King that was going out there and he was this Jedi and he was throwing in 2 balls, 3 balls and all this stuff. And it's like, he's just having fun, man.
So I have kind of a overall generic coaching question. Maybe it's not scoop specific. I'm sure it applies, but one of the most common through lines that we see as feedback from coaches is teaching to this kind of varying scale of ability.
Yeah.
So for one, as the common example, 20 kid team, maybe 5, 6, or 7 of those players are brand new, never picked up a stick before. 5, 6, 7 of those players are 3, 4, 5 years, experience. They play club, they've gotten some outside coaching, and then you've got kind of everyone in between. How do you have any kind of tried and true strategies of like, all right, I know I want to work on scooping and I'm going to do this game, but here's how I can maybe make it a little bit more interesting for these kids who are more experienced and kind of make sure it stays simple and easy to follow for these new players.
Yeah, this is the tricky one, right? I wish there was an answer. In our sport, you got to throw and catch. And I think if you're not able to throw and catch, it kind of throws as you get a little bit older, right? It gets a little bit trickier to be able to be in the same environment. I think kind of like where we're talking about with the 3-on-3 stuff, kids can go and they can do that stuff and they can run around, they can have fun. There's been studies like, I think it was maybe in Denmark or whatever it is where they do it, where they have imagine a big field, right? And, there's 2 teams playing each other across each field, right? And if you win, you go left, right. And if you lose, you go left. And then you start to like find a way to start balancing the kids and where their skill is and how they can play each other. Because again, at the end of the day, it's confidence, right? And if you're playing against a club team, or sorry, if you're playing against a club kid who is just insanely nasty, who probably has some crazy desire to dominate, right? Versus a kid who's brand new to the sport, it's probably not going to be fun for either one, right? So I think like, building practices for us, like I think we do a pretty good job in Coasset, like some of the coaches I do, like we make it a program thing for some of the for some of the practice. Like we make it one grade. There's A's and B's as it gets old. Like we make it a couple days a week where everybody's together, right? Everybody, and we're building that culture and you're really having fun. And then, yeah, we'll split up with, having maybe the B's go one side of the field, the A's, but you're still like reiterating like the concepts and the principles, but you're just kind of putting some folks, kind of the kids where they're going to probably have the most success and enjoy it the most as well. So, but it's
So
always a tricky question.
I know the answer is going to include fun, and we've already kind of talked about it, but you have a certain priority with going into a scoop session. How does that differ, if anything, for retention for middle schoolers and high schoolers? Like, what kind of do you prioritize that says, I want this 7th grader to come back for 8th grade year? What are the things that we have to implement as coaches, as opposed to the scoops where we're making noise and we're having fun, we're doing
Yeah.
animal noises? I mean, you kind of said earlier that the 7th graders are going to look at you funny if you say, everybody
Yeah.
bark like a dog for a couple of
So,
seconds. No, coach.
no, we're out.
So
Yeah.
you've done both now.
Yeah, I think you got to inspire. I think it always comes down to inspiring each kid, right? Inspire them. Like, how do you come back to the next season and get better? And I'm sure you see it like from time to time. There's athletes in this sport. That's what makes this sport, I think, one of the best. I always like, I'm having my kids do wall ball all the time. I never want to demonstrate doing it with my left hand. The reason I don't want to demonstrate with my left hand is because I don't have a left hand. But I was athletic and I could scoop up a ground ball, and so I found a place on the field. And my point is that there are athletes out there that will have a place in this game for as long as the game goes. And so how do you keep them interested? How do you keep the kids that are whatever? And I think you just got to challenge, you got to inspire, you got to kind of like find a way to try to reach them. When you're doing the practices, you can't have standing around. I think a lot of coaches do this. I'm guilty of it for sure. you talk too much, right? You try to explain too much. And that's why I think the repetition, the confidence, the movement is where it's at. Right. Yeah, I definitely would advocate for, you know, each kid is going to get their own kind of evaluation, like potentially in the beginning, this is where I think you're at. In the middle, like, hey, this is what you should be working on, stuff. And then if they enjoy it, if they're having fun, then, the homework, that assignment is, look, man, well, look, like you're a good player. Like if you put a little time into it and you figure out like where the net is or where the wall is, like I think there's a place for you, I think that you can do really good. And again, at the end of the day, you just want to inspire kids to go out and find their interests and be passionate and all that stuff.
I love that answer, Matt. My favorite 10 minutes of practice is the partner passing. And, we want them to take that seriously. I don't know how you do it, but we have assigned partners. So they have a
Yeah,
kid every day, and it's usually a more advanced player with a developing player to kind of keep them honest and, give them good looks. That's what they're looking for. But I love walking around and just checking in. How's school today? What are you all
yeah,
studying? What's going on? And this is where I have my interpersonal relationships with
yeah,
all, 32 kids on the seventh grade.
totally.
I ask them to have a goal for the season, and then I kind of give them what mine is, and we
Yeah,
kind of check in with one another. I'd like for you to make 3 cuts per game, 3 good solid cuts toward the net per game. Just being seen, I think, is what that kid's looking for. And I'm not talking about the superstars on the black helmet team for their
totally.
club. I'm talking about that kid who, is there because mom and dad maybe signed him up, but now they're kind of into it as their spring sport. But I kind of like it. But I want to get in and make sure you're seen and you're doing everything you're supposed to do. And someday you're going to just have that, not just the growth spurt, but the interest spurt, where all of a sudden you're going to watch it on TV and you're going to go, oh my God, I saw 3 things that I never even knew that Coach Joey never explained to me. And they're going to then catch up like a skyrocket. But in that
Totally.
time being in fifth, sixth, seventh grade, it's just that connection of like, I see you, you're getting there. You're getting these,
Yeah.
check off these.
And maybe you find what they're good at. I coach basketball and like we were in the midst of a playoff here, and like so it's been 5 months. It's been a long season, and I coach all these kids, and I'm like, wow, this guy's really good at rebounding, or he's really good at like, he's really good at like, I don't know, layups or whatever it is. And it's like if I can pull that part out of him or her, and make them feel really good about that role, that's enough for them to kind of keep going a little bit. And again, like, to stay with the basketball analogy, I'm not sure it's a good one.
It's a great.
The best point shooters love to shoot 3-pointers, and the best rebounders get like to be at the block. And I think like if you are good at one part of the game, right, that's awesome. Like that could be your role just for the time being until you kind of develop that piece. But then you feel like you're in it. You feel like you're contributing. And that's awesome because everyone's not going to be the goal scorer, right? But as you know, Marty, like, look, you get someone who's like a great D midi, like, they're more important than anyone. Like you get, at some point, like you're going to need a really good face-off person. Like that's a great role for that person too. Like, and so finding the confidence within that person, kind of like elevating them to do a little bit more here and there, just so that they can be part of the team if they're not the superstar. I think that's always a cool thing about coaching as well.
So I have a question about if you kind of zoom out a little bit and think about how you approach, let's say 1-2 verse 3-4 verse 5-6 verse 7-8. What are the consistencies that you feel like, regardless of what age I'm coaching, whether this is for Scoops or for Cohasset, this is something I know I'm going to implement into my day. And then maybe just speak a little bit to like, what would you do with, the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth graders that, it just doesn't really make sense for that younger group.
Yeah. So I think you mentioned it, it's energy for me. It's like, how are you going to connect and how are you going to bring that energy? That's the consistency from first to, eighth grade, right? You're going to try to connect with these kids. I think in some levels, there's this one practice where this tells you how psycho is. I wasn't even coaching, but there was like first and second or third and fourth graders, and the coach was kind of struggling to keep some of their attention. So they asked me to come, and I was like watching the practice, and it looked like paint, drying a little bit. The kids were kind of on their own playing Star Wars, and I came up with this game. I'm like, if I roll out a ball and you scoop it properly and you run around the net and you throw it in, I'll give you a barrel roll. The front field in Coas, Joe, I think, and and there's a nice little hilltop, right? And so the kids got to scoop a ball, throw it in, and then roll down the hill as a barrel roll. And they loved it. They absolutely, and then they'll go out, they'll do another scoop and do it. So like finding a way, just kind of be creative in that way for those young kids, I think is awesome. Now, that's not going to work necessarily in the 5, 6, 7, 8. They'd still love to be goofy and do stuff like that. But I think you got to kind of like increase a little, speak to their language. You know, you still want to reiterate. I think some of these programs do a really good job of teaching stick skills. I think one thing that I've learned is if you can move when you throw, like that's so much better than it just standing there sometimes too. So, you know, I think I stole this from someone, but like going up and down, throwing back and forth as you go up, back and forth, I think is super important, you know, because again, like in the game, you're never really standing still. Right. So that's something I'd probably carry around first and second, third and fourth, fifth and sixth, seventh, eighth. The first and seconds aren't going to be able to do it that well, but as they develop on by the seventh and eighth, they're doing that. So definitely some level of stick skill. I would love to teach them, no matter what the age is, how to do a proper ground ball. Right. To me, that's so important. Right. Obviously, you know, I think it is like possessions win game, things of that nature. But for me, how do you do a proper ground ball has to be all like inertia, right? It has to be all going in and attacking that ground ball like your life depends on it. So getting nice and low, going and and I don't think that's going to be lost on an eighth grader as much as it's as important as to a first grader. And then what do you do when you get that ground ball? So like that should be something that's done all the time. And then finding games that where you can get ground balls all the time, like in getting scoops and all that stuff. But how you do a proper ground ball, I could do that for hours. Right.
Do you find yourself having to sell it a little bit? You know, like I've definitely used this as well. Like, you know, it's like, guys, at the professional level, you're so going to see stick work and ground ball drills. You know, like here you are as a Division I player with like accolades around your scooping, and it's like, you know, we're not above this as an eighth grade select team.
Have to work at it.
You know?
No, because you know what? Like I think as time goes on and like if you see it, like kids love playing time, right? I mean, if you're in the sport, you want playing time. And I always say, look, if you want to be playing time, get really good at ground balls because there's no coach in the world that's not going to want to put you out there. You might not even need a left hand at this point. If you can get the ground ball and you can get it to I used to say like, because I get it to the people that know what they're doing with it, which meant the attack, but just go get that ground ball. So yeah, I mean, I do it. I kind of do it in a kind of a crazy way. I'll roll it out there and I will like scream like it's a primal scream, ball, like overemphasizing it, right? But I attack it with such force, such inertia, because that's what I want the kids to do. But if you go into a ground ball and you're kind of trying to like scoop it, or, you know, obviously kids try to rake it sometimes, like it doesn't end up well. But if you go at it really hard, like if your effort is going at it hard and then you scoop, great. But you gotta go through that thing, whatever. This is crazy. I used to, this tells you how wild, insane I am. I used to go bring my kids to the beach and with a piece of bread, right? And like a roll of bread, and I would throw the piece of bread out there and you'd see a seagull go attack that piece of bread like none other. You throw another one. I said, that's what you got to be like when you go get a ground ball. Go be a seagull.
Oh, that's a great
urgency.
Yeah, if you've ever done it, I mean, it gets nasty in those scrums either, too.
Seagull doesn't know if they're ever going to see another piece of bread again. So
that's it, man. You want to stay on that field, get that ground ball, man. Any coach will put you out there.
That's amazing. I love
it. So can you give us sort of like a one session template of, you know, how you might spend a 60-minute session, let's say for Scoops, and if it's different, you know, for Cohasset, what are the things you're kind of building in? And, you know, Coach Joey, you alluded to how you you do a skill and then you gamify it. You do a skill and then you gamify it. Like, how do you think about that, Coach Bells? And does that change, I guess, as a secondary question? Does that change as they get older, how that template looks? Or is it just, you know, instead of just scooping technique, it's scooping plus a decision?
Yeah, I think you build for sure. I think that's right. I think for Scoops, I can take you through a session pretty quickly. It's 60 minutes. The kids come in, first 5 minutes, I've dumped all the balls out, right? I think of like Nickelodeon when kids just run around on balls, right? And that was like the best thing ever. So I dump all these balls and they scoop and they put in the bucket. And then once they've done, I kick the bucket over. I'm like, guys, you made the mess. Who made this mess? And they got to do it again, right? Again, awesome repetition to that. Then I line them up. We do this, like I was mentioning, kind of the connection, the engagement piece. Then we do a really fun kind of warm up where I have them on the line. And I said, when you hear the music, you're going to run to the other side. When the music stops, what do you do? And they're like, we freeze. I'm like, nope. We do air, nose, air, nose, air, nose. We're cradling. So I play that music. They stop. Air, nose. And then if I say, well, lacrosse is a team sport. So if everyone's not doing air, nose, you're going back to the line. And so if I don't see it, I'm going to yell line. And then they do it. I yell line, they run back. I have them do it again, they run back. And then midway through the third time, I play the music when they're running back. And then they hear the music, they got to run. And so they think it's this game, but then I sit them down. I tell them, look, guys, in the game of lacrosse, you're changing directions a lot. You better have that head up, and you got to be able to keep that stick high and all that stuff. So finding a way to just kind of keep it engaging, musical freeze or whatever it's called, where they're moving. So we do something like that. We get it all going, and then we go into whatever the skill is. If we're throwing and catching, we just had this really fun thing where they try to throw, and I teach them obviously the butt end where the butt end's pointing, and then I let them try to throw it at me, which is kind of fun, right? They like a softball and they aim. It's like aim, extend, right? Fire. And I'm teaching them again, the way I do it is again, wherever the butt ends, ball's going to point. So point it at the funny looking coach. This is your aim position, extend, as you guys know, you're always telling get your hands away from your body when you throw, right? And then point your, top of your head at where you're aiming, but just a fun little thing like that. So we'll do games like that for 30 40 minutes, and then the last 10 minutes is the super fun part. We'll do a dance party, we'll do a guitar off, we'll do something memorable that probably isn't lacrosse oriented, but again makes them excited to come back and all that stuff. For the other grades, again, I go back to the movement aspect. I think just getting them doing some level of skill, like Joe said in the beginning. And then I think it's kind of cool if you can kind of incorporate some type of game. Obviously West Jenny is one of the things that the kids love so much. But take West Jenny out because it's the obvious example. It's what are the other ones where they're constantly moving and they're constantly competing? And in basketball, it's 3-on-2, 2-on-1. And I think that's a really cool one with lacrosse too. It's similar to, right? And it's just again, getting them to move and cut and, do all these things. I forget what Casey Powell once said, but I think he said something to the account of never stand still. You're either passing, you're picking, or you're cutting, constantly, right? If you just go with that, you're good. And that's what it's all about is all these practices and all that stuff. Just get them moving, constantly be moving. Yeah. It's so really skill games, that's going to develop things. And then when there's time, you go into whatever it is, 4-on-4, 6-on-6, whatever it is. And you're teaching concepts as well.
Love it. Yeah. We always tell coaches, whatever you're doing for small sided gameplay, double it, triple it. We need to be doing more of that. It also alludes to what you talked about earlier about we probably talk too much. There's no way that kids are going to really absorb how to cut more, set more picks and pass more and be more of that, unselfish and, energized player just by hearing the explanation of how important it is. It's no. How can you add rules and sort of incentivizations within the games that you're playing to pull out those desirable behaviors?
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
agree. As coaches, we talk a lot, but I still love encouraging conversation and practice. And I want reps, but I love pulling the kids in after three
Yeah.
reps of just open play, 3-on-3 from the crease, roll a ground ball anywhere, bring it in. What worked? I want to
Yeah.
hear from you. What did you think worked? And then that
Oh,
opens
yeah.
their eyes
Totally.
and their
Yeah.
IQ to say, I noticed that when my teammate came and set a pick on me, I had more opportunities than when they just stood there. Right? Kind of opening up that dialogue. So when I hear, coaches say don't talk a lot, I agree with it that we shouldn't
Yeah.
just an overkill, the
Yeah.
technique or something for 15 minutes. But it's a talking sport as much as it is a running sport and a moving
Yeah.
sport.
I think it's great too. It encourages them as well. One of my I have these 3 things when I teach the older kids. It's work hard, ask questions, have fun. Right. And I think the second part is similar to what we're talking about is where you're asking questions. You're a professional lacrosse player, Marty, you still don't have all the answers to this game. Right. So as a 4th grader, you don't have the answers. Right. So ask questions and hopefully, we can help you and stuff like that. But just, constantly, that's how you get knowledgeable. And, they're probably going to go on a tangent here, but I lived a lot of my life not asking questions because I wanted to seem smarter. I wanted to seem like I knew what I was doing. And, I probably suffered a lot from just being more concerned with the perception versus whatever than actually knowing. And so I think if we can encourage kids to ask questions, even if it's it's specifically what you're saying, Joey, it's pull them aside so they don't have to feel like they don't, they're not in the know. Right. And ask them, did you get that? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because again, it goes back to One kid in one grade might be born in January and their intelligence level might be significantly higher than the kid that's born in November. So like, let's not expect everyone's going to get a coach talking what they're saying. So encourage them to ask questions, have those conversations. Um, that's the sign of like real
Yeah.
coolness is like,
Vulnerability too. Be vulnerable. Say it's
yeah,
okay. I don't know that. Well, listen, Matt, this was a really great intro to so much more that we could talk about philosophy and fun and energy for coaches. But if I were to just kind of ask one last sort of question to throw at you as advice for someone who's brand new to the sport, I guess it would be, how can a coach remain consistent and bring that energy constant, not just at the beginning of the year where it's exciting, but how do you pull that out of yourself midway through the season when things aren't going all that well and games could be tough and the kids' stick skills aren't where they really should be compared to maybe some of the neighboring towns? So what advice do you have? Because I feel like you're so constant always, which makes you brilliant at what you do. But how can some coach pull that out of themselves to remain consistent for the kids throughout the whole time?
yeah. That's a great question. For me, I always say it's the opportunity of a lifetime, right? And it's going to go quick. I was just talking to a friend of mine whose kids are, one's in college and one kid's, I think, it's junior in high school. And I asked him, "Do you miss it?" And he's like, "I miss it every day." And so I think like this is an opportunity of a lifetime to coach your kids, right? It's an opportunity to coach and give back and instill some of the things that maybe your parents helped that you didn't see it at that time. But like, so it's a great opportunity. And I think the kids will respond to you. And they'll respond to you they really believe that you care, if they really believe that you have their best interests and stuff to that nature. And yeah, there's going to be seasons that go up and down for sure. But every practice, every game is an opportunity to get something through or work through them or make them feel better. So when you show up, like show up with energy, show up with care, figure out what your why. And I always say it's the most rewarding thing in the entire world is just helping these kids become a little bit better versions of themselves. Again, both on and off the field, finding their way. I love coaching. It's in my blood. I'm an awful spectator, not right, just not because I say anything from the sidelines, but because I want to go over there and help the coaches in particular, and I want to help the kids, right? And I think like if you're out there this season, find your why, right? Figure out why you're there and just have a blast. And if you help one kid, if you help all the kids, that's awesome. But if you're able to connect with one kid and help them there, you've done a job. Like you've done such a cool job. At the end of it, these are the memories that you're going to remember. You're going to remember, pulling on like off the highway, after a late day of travel and getting like fast food with all their friends. Like the kids are going to love you. Like these are the relationships you're going to build. And I just think it's an awesome thing. I encourage everybody and anyone, even if you don't have the experience, start at a young age. We work with a lot of town programs and we do all the coaching initially. And for us, it's like, it's great we always encourage parents to come in and like, it's a non-pressure environment to learn how to coach with Scoops because you're going to be there and like, we're going to do everything. You're just going to have to hold the line and observe and get you into the sport in a really fun way. And then that helps with the town's U9 programs and everything. But yeah, it's a great, awesome question. And I think just remember why you're there to help these kids. Yeah.
Good stuff, Coach. Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Totally. Can I give out one shout out? So just want to give a quick shout out to Mass Youth Lacrosse. Like they've been an awesome partner to Scoops for so long. I'm such a fan of everybody that's involved in there, from Kevin to Aaron to to everybody. I think we work with 55, maybe 58 towns in Massachusetts, which is pretty cool. Mass Youth Lacrosse has helped us connect to a lot of those towns. Last month we were at the convention and I called Kevin after and I said, like, how cool is this? How cool is that the fact that you're able to bring this whole community together and, educate them, and it's just everybody who loves being around each other. You see guys, like I saw Joey, I gave him a big hug. I see that I haven't seen in a while and everyone's there. And it's just a really cool thing. And it's a rare thing, in the age of everything kind of going in a different direction and all that stuff, to have a cool program like Mass Youth Lacrosse that's heavily invested in the education. Thanks to you, Marty, and stuff that's heavily invested in the education to make this game better. So just shout out to those guys and big fans.
Amen.
Coach, thank you so much. Coach Joey, thank you for co-hosting. Coach Bells, thank you for joining us. as always, thank you to Mass Youth Lax for powering this podcast. And I just want to, one final question for you is, where can we send coaches that are interested in Scoops Lacrosse and learn a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, check out scoopslax.com. And again, like anyone who has questions or is interested or, wants to learn anything, I'm an open book. I'm a transparent open book. Lacrosse has given me so much in my life. So I would love to share all that stuff. I'm at Coach Bells at Scoops Lax. You can email me and love to get in contact and stuff. If there's any town programs that are interested in us coming that way, we'd love to talk with you as well. But yeah, just a big fan.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks to the listeners out there. And see you next week.